And I think it's so important that we have to realize all of it's God's, like the money, the people, the stuff. It's all His, right? Like we don't really have anything. We just steward the stuff that's here while we're here. And so I think what we have to realize is that we're not here to consume. We're here to serve others and to love others first and foremost. And I think if our heart's that right and is focused on that, then all these other things will flow. So it's a daily abiding. It's understanding that I need to be close to my Father and I need to be close to His word and what He says. And when I do that, the other stuff will flow.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Life Refresh Podcast. You know who it is. It's Ryan Robinson. Excited and delighted that you would join with us today. Like I told you, we're going to have some more interviews. And I am blessed to be able to have my brother here, Chris Brown, in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you today?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Before we get going, let me share with our audience a little bit of your background here. He's had 20 years of experience in retail, marketing, and digital commerce, collaborated with many retailers, pioneered, actually helped out with building out what we now know as the influencer market, and has done so many things and launched his first uh, e-commerce media company back in 2005 before there was a YouTube, before an iPhone, right? Like, hey, he's a pioneer, led the foundation for all those things. And outside of business, he has a passion for creating, helping individuals have financial wealth. He's debt free, y'all. And him being debt free has created opportunities for him to be able to serve individuals, build and create more real estate investment opportunities, and actually currently has a portfolio of billboards and is teaching others how to generate passive income doing the same. And also, he's a good brother in Christ as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, my friend again, Chris Brown. There we go. Chris, how you doing again?
Good, man. I'm blessed. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Very good. You know, for those that don't know you, can you give us a little bit of background, man? How you're a little bit of origin story. I tried to do the best I could on, on your introduction, but tell people really about you, man. And I mean, most people I know are like, "How'd you get debt free? And how can I help people?" But get right to it. But just tell us a little bit about where you are, where you've been, where you live, and all those good things.
Yeah, man. I definitely didn't start out there. That's for sure. So I'll go back to the beginning. I'm just a farm boy from Arkansas. So grew up and
Right.
raised here, live in Bentonville in the headquarters of Walmart world. I've
Mhm.
been married for about 23 years. And like I said, I didn't start out the debt-free place. I actually started out broke as a joke. I'm talking like
Mm.
the broke that we had two cars, one which we had to crawl in through the passenger side to get over to the driver's seat. The other one, when it rained, we actually had the back seat full of water. That's how broke we were.
Oh
We
man.
had, when we got married, we traded those two cars in for one. So started out
Mm.
23 years ago doing that, living the life, got a job, started getting all the stuff, buying and house and cars and accumulating that debt. So like the process was definitely not how it ended. So I started out with
Mhm.
lots of debt and not knowing, having a clue what I was doing.
Man, that's as a humble beginnings and foundation, right?
Right. For
Man.
sure.
Yeah. So I mean, and one of the things I'm curious about, I'm gonna ask like it looks like you wanted a different life than that. What was the fuel for you? Because many of my listeners are seeking what we call a life refresh, really, which is really becoming and walking in what God has purposed and designed us to be from the foundations of the earth. And a lot of that requires vision for that. So, what was the fuel and motivation for you when you're going on that journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I wanted the freedom. I
Hmm.
wanted to really be able to live a life that I wanted to live, and not be tied down to what others wanted me to do. Started 20 something years ago. That first year after I got married, like I said, I was the negative direction. We were full, in debt, had credit cards, car loans, house, mortgage, all that good stuff. And I even joined a country club. All the good stuff you should do those first few years when you don't have a lot
Hmm.
of money. But what I wanted to do was be able to do the things that I wanted to do, which was impact others and help others out. And I knew I couldn't do that if I was going to be strapped down. So
Hmm.
begin learning and studying the principles of wealth building. I actually started out, funny enough, I was driving in a car, had a cassette tape series that kind of taught the basics of getting out of debt and how to build wealth. And I
Hmm.
started studying that. I was 21, 22 years old, started listening
Hmm.
to these and started saying, okay, I can do that, and
Hmm.
began that journey. So that was able, the desire to not be tied down, and then the desire to be able to live that life abundantly that I wanted to live, was what
Hmm.
allowed me to start to pursue that.
Wow, that's incredible. I think many of us, and I don't know if this is, I think sometimes having, first of all, you had cassette tapes. Now, for those who don't know what a cassette tape is, I need you to Google it.
Exactly.
The Walkman is one of the, what do they say, the most important products the world has ever had, next to the iPhone. So if you're
Yep.
interested, go ahead and
That
Google
just
that
dates me
thing.
a little bit, doesn't it? Just gives me a little
well,
date. Like I had to
well,
turn my cassette tapes over at the end of the each side and flip it over and rewind it to get it to play to the next side.
listen, I already know. Like, I'm with you. I had the cassette tapes too, and the Walkman with the cushy headphones. You know what I mean, with the foam
There you
on it.
go.
So,
It's
to
awesome.
me, we there. Some of my listeners may not be, but if they relate, man, y'all there, y'all understand. Um, but it's really hard for many people to have hope during times like that.
Mm,
Particularly what they see is not what they are experiencing, or sorry, what they see is not what they want to have in their lives.
mm,
Um, again, that is a journey for many people, particularly if they don't see light at the end of the tunnel, and you have all of this debt and all of the circumstances, and you have a heart to serve. What kept you anchored in all of that? Because there's all kinds of debt-free folks and all the books and things like that. And I think there's a part where people's like, does this really work for me, kind of thing? What kept you going?
yeah, and so you're right. It's a mindset. So you gotta get the mindset right that you really want it. You have to understand why you want it, and understand the bigger
Hmm.
picture. And then you have to start to believe that. You have to start living that, make it who you are. It's not hard. It's really not hard to get
Hmm.
out of debt. It's really not hard to build wealth. It's really not. It just takes time. It takes consistency, and it's like a lot like working out or losing
Hmm.
weight. It's not hard. You eat less, work out more, you will lose weight. You will get in shape. Spending same way, but you have to understand the mindset. And you have to understand why we actually do the behaviors that we do. So
Hmm.
money is like mostly psychology, and you start to study that, and you start to understand that I had to make the decision. I didn't want the debt. I didn't want to. I wanted to build wealth. I made it a desire. I started reading. I think I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2001, when
Hmm.
early on, right after it came out. Started reading through all those series. Started studying the ways others built wealth, the way they got out of debt, and then made a personal choice how I wanted to live. Like debt free is not for everybody. Building wealth's not for everybody. They may not want that. That's okay, but the freedom that is what most people do want comes with a little bit of a cost, which is just being consistent, making a decision to do it, and then following through on those decisions. It's small practices every day. It's little habits. It's the
Hmm.
I don't need to have a coffee out. Or for the first few years of our marriage, we didn't have cable television in our house. So
Hmm.
there are some choices you have to make of what's important, what's not important. And was it inconvenient? Maybe, but once you realize, you start doing it, you don't even realize you don't have it or don't need it. And so I think it's just once you make the choice, what are you willing to do to make that happen, and then to follow through with it. And it's just those little things. And then make sure your spouse is on board so you're not fighting each other. That's a big help.
Mm-hmm.
My wife did a great job of that, of being on board and understanding, because she had a desire to stay home with children eventually. So, part of our
Mm-hmm.
plan was we both worked. She was a school teacher and I was in sales, and she was going to work till she had our first child. And then she wanted to stay home. So we
Mm-hmm.
actually worked hard and diligently literally saved every one of her paychecks for 5 years, and said, look, we're just
Wow.
going to pay us that. So when you do stay home, we could pay ourselves back just like you were getting a paycheck. And so that was one of the
Mm-hmm.
things we did. So a little discipline. So it just takes a plan. It takes a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
having a guide, someone to show you how to do it if you don't know how. And then it takes just the action and discipline of doing that, and understanding that, hey, if I continue to do this, it will work. It just takes a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's incredible. First of all, like I keep saying that because most people, at least what I've seen, is that it's just so far away for people that they're like, I'm not even going to do this, or they think they need to get a higher paying job with the mentality that they had when they were that started the debt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
No,
saying?
you're right. The
So they,
bigger job or bigger income, it's a shovel, right? It definitely helps if you're
Mhm,
digging a hole to have a better shovel, or sharper axe if you're cutting down the tree. But
mhm,
you got to start somewhere. What most people do is actually they get the bigger job and their spending goes up. So you have to have the
mhm,
mindset right beforehand. For the first year was totally in debt, had a lot of debt, didn't know what I was doing, but made a decision after that to start really working on that. And so once we started to get that plan of action, lay those out, it's pretty simple steps. It's like you list them in order. You start to pay off the
mhm,
highest to the lowest, or the lowest to the highest, so that you get psychologically you get wins. So the lowest debt first, you pay that
mhm,
off, then you move to the second one. The money stays in the system, but what happens is you can't pull money out of it. You got to keep letting that snowball work. And it really does
mhm,
work, because you start paying off one after another. So you pay off one credit card with $100 a month or whatever it is, and you put the $100 on the next thing. That snowball starts to end up being bigger and bigger. So when you end up on your car and you're paying a $500 car payment plus the two or three hundreds that you had from the other debts, you're paying $700 a month on that car payment. It doesn't take as long to pay
mhm,
off. Most people don't realize that you can only get in so much debt that you should technically be able to pay off everything that you have in about 8 years, including a mortgage, 8 to 10 years. And people don't realize that. It's based on your
really.
scores and everything, and the amount of debt to income limits. So everybody
Mhm,
can get out of debt. It's possible. Most of it comes back
mhm,
to what your spending is, and your choices you're making on what's the outputs.
mhm. Man, I think that's a very many of us that will sit there and think like it's that easy, you
It,
know, and it is the we call the fundamentals is are the same, right? It's the blocking, the tackling,
mhm.
the catching if we're playing football, like those things, right? But putting yourself in position are the items that are probably the most challenging for individuals, and I think it's important for us as individuals who are looking to walk in their purpose to understand these ways to be able to be free to do things like what's in your heart to do. And as you were going on that journey and becoming debt free and paying things off, had the appetite to really serve people um, in a very unique way, was that always there? Or as you became more free, the want to give and serve people started to make itself more apparent to you?
So I think it's a little bit of both. I think, you
Hmm.
have to have, like, my heart had to be generous and want to give. That's a principle. Like, I believe in tithing and giving and generosity as a whole, but that's in you
Hmm.
at the little, and that's in you at the lot. And it has to stay
Hmm.
consistent, right? That doesn't change. If you say, oh, I'll give when I have, doesn't work like that. You got to give from
Hmm.
the beginning when you don't have, because that's the behavior that you'll build into you, that you say, okay, this is who I am. I'm a giver.
Hmm.
I am
Hmm.
a financially frugal person or independent person, or wealth. I'm going to be wealthy. That's a mindset
Hmm.
thing. So becoming generous, you have to kind of do that at the beginning so that you can serve. Now, it does make it easier to choose to serve other things when you have free time or you have extra resources. But I think that's why, we want to do it. It's so fun. Like the reward on the backside that I have been able to been blessed with is to be able to give. I mean, we don't tell many people like what we do on that, but it's really fun when you can go pay someone's rent or mortgage because they're
Mhm.
behind and they're struggling and they're about to get evicted, and you can just go take care of it anonymously, and you pay that. Buy someone a car. Like that's a real joy when you can talk to your child about that. Is, hey, we're buying this person a car, the single mom that doesn't have a way to get to her work, and now this is going to offer her the opportunity to break that cycle of poverty because she has transportation that's reliable, so she can do that. Being able to give like that is life changing for the giver. Everybody says, oh, it's about the person that receives it. No, it's about you being able to actually give, and to have that heart of generosity, to realize that we're all just um, broken people, and we've been shown so much grace that it's one of those things that it's our privilege and our job to extend that back out to others. And so once you're able to do that, it makes it a lot easier and it's a lot more fun.
Man, that's incredible. I can't keep saying incredible. That's all. Like I would, and many people I know they have a heart to do it, right? Like as they've grown. And again, if you have experienced and want to serve and care for people, again, this is something that it's a heart thing, right? That your heart
Mm-hmm.
has to be in the right place in order to be able to be generous like that. And God always talks about having a soft heart and being generous, and as always being a pastor, because none of this is ours, right? None of this is
We're just
we
stewards.
are just managers
That's
of
right.
these resources that we've been given. um a question: what do you think keeps people from being extravagant givers? What's that mindset as you established, like, hey, I wanted to be a giver from jump? Some people may start out that way, but then circumstances may change their mindset. So what keeps them from actually getting that, giving that flow, or being that conduit to be able to bless people like you've been able to give?
Well, one, it's a heart thing, right? So it comes back to what's in your heart, and whatever
Mm-hmm.
will flow out. So it's if your heart, if you believe in abundance and you believe there's plenty, and God's going to take care of your needs, then you're open to help others. Some of it's just good old blocking and tackling, like you said. Like, am I a good
Mm-hmm.
steward of what I've been given, or can I delay self gratification? Our country, this this generation, this time, people are not very good at delaying self gratification, or delaying that
Mm-hmm.
self gratification. They want everything now. We live in that microwave society that I need it now. I mean, you got to stop at a Starbucks every time you drive by one. You got to go out to eat 4 times a week. Like, I didn't do that for a while. Those were luxuries, and you had to kind of understand that. And so being able to delay some of those, I bought furniture for my house one piece at a time over months. Not like I needed the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing to look good and I'd have it. We went and bought one piece at a time, and then so you had the chair and you had the couch, you had the dining room, you had each piece. And so the house took a year to fill up. And
Wow.
that's a choice. You have to kind of make that, but that allows you then to say, look, that's just becomes who you are, and what you're going to
Mm-hmm.
do is be able to do that in other areas. So I'm not constrained by resources, and so then I feel the abundance that I can then share. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
important for people to do.
Yeah. You correlated it to working out, having um, carbs in versus carbs out, and many people want that quick weight loss pill
Mm-hmm.
that, that like, oh, I'm just gonna lose weight all of a sudden. And even that takes time, to get there. Bible says that no man but to love him. So
Right.
I'm incredibly inspired, really, because many people have thought that financial freedom is something that's for everyone else except for me.
Mm.
And
It's not true.
I think that's a lie that people digest, a lie from the enemy that really helps them stay where they
Yeah.
are.
Right.
particularly when you said paying off a mortgage and paying off a house. People were like, "What? That's like hundreds of thousands of dollars."
Yeah.
Well,
And
you know,
it's not a, well, if I made a lot of money, then I could do that. That's not the case.
mhm,
It's
right.
because they won't loan you X amount of dollars based on your income. You can pay the income off or the loan off based off that.
I think for individuals that say they want financial wealth, um, it seems that you already had a plan for what you're going to do. And with your experience in this influencer market and kind of on the ground floor of what that actually looked like, um, how were you able to share, especially as you're going through the financial freedom, build something that actually speaks to serving other people? And how did you get into billboards as a response to that?
Yeah. So, billboards were just a vehicle. So I've done real estate. I bought my first investment real estate property in 2004. So I was 24 years old. I bought my neighbor's
Mhm,
house. So it wasn't like I went
mhm,
out, was looking for a bunch of things. They had a house that was sitting there. I bought that from them. I flipped it, made $10,000 in a month. I was like,
mm,
wow, this is more than I make in a couple of months, right? So that was one of those that I was
right.
like, okay, there's something to this. So started studying it, started buying other real estate deals, started really focusing in on that. Billboards is just another real estate play. It's another way to do
Mhm,
that. My company that I run in my local market here is called Signs of Good. So I own billboards. People advertise on the billboards. It's a pretty simple business, and that's what I'm going to teach people. It's like anybody can do it. It's not that hard. I don't have any tenants, no toilets. I don't have to sell anything to friends and family. So it's a nice
right.
place to be. But what's cool is my billboards. The name of them is actually my company is called Signs of Good. And
Mhm,
so what we are able to do is we're able to take that advertising that people do and then turn around and help try to break the cycle of poverty through
mhm.
other local nonprofits. So we give back to food insecurity, to feed the hungry, to single moms, to orphans foster and adoption, those kind of things. So we're trying to take care of the community. So the advertising dollars that I turn around and am able to help back in the local community.
Wow. That's is and that's one thing I think most people like almost forget, that billboards are still a huge revenue driver for multiple businesses these days. The ones I see are lawyers.
Yeah.
Lawyers when they if they get in an accident or something like that. But if you go into a place like a larger city like LA or New York, there's digital billboarding. There's all kinds of things like that. So
Hmm.
um, is as we have progressed technologically in different places, how have you seen billboarding, whether it change, evolve, um, and why is it such a forgotten piece of real estate these days?
So a couple questions in there. So yeah, definitely lots of
Yes, it's fully
versions of it.
loaded.
So I have digital billboards. I have good old fashioned static billboards on the highway they're made of steel. Um,
Mhm,
and the advertisers range, and it is a local, it's national, it's a little bit of everything. So that's a great thing. And it's a media that no one can change. So you think about your options when you're driving in the car. You may be listening to a podcast one day, the radio, sports talk the next, and Sirius satellite the next day. You can change any of those. You got a lot of options. You can't change billboards. They're going to stay there
mhm,
whether you want to change them or not. You can change your television station. You can change a lot of things, and you got a lot of options out there, but you don't have any options when it comes to billboards. The reason you
mhm,
don't hear about them very often is it's actually controlled by just a handful of people. So
mm,
most people don't know about billboards because that's not something people talk about building because it's kind of a closely held secret. And I kind of feel like the magician as I'm about to roll out this course and teaching others how to do it because magicians don't share their tricks, right? That's part of the thing is you
right.
don't share what goes on behind the scenes. And so, but I feel like it's such an opportunity. It's been a great path for me and one of the vehicles that I've used to build wealth that I want others to do that as well and have that opportunity so that they can be givers and can become financially free. So It's not been talked about. It's not one of those out there because it's really owned and controlled by a handful of major corporations, your Lamars, your
Mhm.
Outfronts, your CBS Medias, those kind of things. And they don't want anybody to know how to do it. So it's not like real estate that changes hands all the time. It's one of
Mhm.
those, if you know, the kind of the rule in the billboard business, you'll never just own one billboard. Once you own one, you're going to want to own others because you go, oh, this isn't a bad deal. So, I went from 0 to 30 in a couple of years. So it's like, how do you go to own those? And especially when it's just like a door whenever you own real estate, multifamily or single family, whatever, and you have cash flow coming in or rent coming in. And then I put up a sign or I digitally put out a sign and then the advertisers pay. And then if they don't, I can take them off. And that's really the headache I have. And it's a great business to be in.
Wow. So it's incredible. I'm just gonna you're walking us through your story, man, and this is incredible. So you went from debt free to signs of good, a business that in an area that is completely uh, controlled and very siloed, like you said, like no one really. I don't think about it. I'm like, oh man, it's a billboard there, but you're absolutely right. It's such an important static piece that you can't change because it's just you can't miss it. You know,
No.
uh, you literally can't miss it. Um, is there a so for those who are looking, and I want to get into your course here in a bit, but I want to kind of talk about this niche you've had and
Okay.
found when it comes to building a business, because not only are you debt free, but you also have built a sustainable business that is creating income for you in an area that very many people are not privy to that kind of information. And now you're sharing the tricks that make the things go through your course. If someone is out there who's listening is looking to get into a business that may not necessarily be uh, advertised highly, um, what were some steps that what if you can kind of give us a few clues as to what those kind of steps may be, whether they're looking to get into, like, I don't know, auto mechanics or doing something that can create some passive income. What were the steps that you walked through to find a particular niche that has garnered you to continue to create the wealth and stay debt free and be able to impact people?
Yeah, I think you have to just one be open, right? Your mind has to be able to look, and one of the things that I tell people is when you focus on things, they start to appear. What I was taught a long
Mm,
time ago, it's called the reticular activating system. We've all know about it. We just don't realize we know about our reticular activating system. It's in our brain. But the minute you
mhm,
buy a new car, let's just say you start looking at a new car and it's just a red Mustang, let's just call it that. And all of a sudden now you're driving, you start to see red Mustangs everywhere because your brain's picking up and looking for it. So that's one of those things that you don't even realize, like, oh, you start to pick up on things. So when you're looking for a business, I think that's the same thing is what is it you want? Why do you want certain businesses? You want kind of a dream business, something that's dependable and reliable and it brings in steady income that you're not having to have trouble scaling, that you're consistently worried about going up and down. Service
mhm,
businesses are great. They can also be challenging. So how do you want into the services? Is hospitality your thing? If you wanted to run a restaurant or something like that, but looking at the overall business and how it operates, I think you just got to look and start digging into, find someone that's doing it what you think you want to go do. Go work for them. Go learn. I tell people all
mhm,
the time, like, there's times I would just go learn a business just to learn it. And just because I was
mhm,
interested in it, maybe you go take a job and you give them 6 months or a year of your time to learn and decide. You may decide, I would never want to be in this business again. So I think there's plenty of information out there. I think it's finding something you like, that you enjoy, that is profitable. We often
mhm,
overlook that. A lot of times we think we want to get into businesses and then we realize these aren't very profitable. So why am I doing all this work? And I think, as you know, one of the things I started studying early on was there's a couple of things that Rich Dad Poor Dad taught in the book, or cash flow quadrants. There's do you want to be an employee or self-employed, a business owner, or investor? And you start to look at those different things, and you go, a lot of people start a business and they actually just move from an employee to self-employed, which is just they own their job. It's the same thing. It's not an actual business. It's just they're self-employed. So they still have to work for somebody, still have to show up for their hours, still have to do the work, and that becomes just a self-employed. Now you can make a little bit more money, but you have a lot more responsibility. What we really want to do is start building business systems, which is then when you move into that business ownership. So that's what I look for now. When I buy businesses or when I buy properties or when I buy or start something, I want the business system that I don't have to be in it every day. I may help start it, I may run it. The billboard business I do about 2 to 4 hours a month on. That's all the effort I put
Wow.
into it, and it runs itself. So I think what it is you want to have that kind of business, and or be an investor into that kind of business so that they run themselves. I can pull myself out. All of it's automated. I have an accounting. I have the operations done. I have the creative done. I don't do all that work. It's
Mhm.
kind of sells itself because I put a number on the sign. It's one of those type things. I can make some phone calls if I need to. I drive around, look for places. I look for different things, but that's one of the things I would say is understand what kind of business it is. Understand, do you want to be a business owner and really
Mhm.
run a business where it's a system that you own, that if you could pull yourself out, that business would still run. That's the great thing about
Mhm.
billboards. Today, I could sell any of my billboards, the whole billboard thing, for multiple millions of dollars based on the multiple of revenue that's coming in. That's a
Mhm.
business that sells whether I'm there or not. They don't need me to continue on that business. A lot of businesses,
Mhm.
they need the person that's there to continue to run it. And that's a job.
Got it. Man, you are giving us some clues here, man. This is great. This is great stuff. I'm taking notes, honestly. Like you can't even see me. I'm taking some notes here. Incredible, incredible. So one of the things I want to get to, I want to get to your course. I want to get to your course because I'm in the is Arkansas considered Midwest still? It's considered
South,
Midwest.
Midwest, it's
So,
right there on the line of both. If it falls into Midwest, I mean, I'm 30 minutes away from Missouri, 30 minutes from Kansas, 30 minutes from Oklahoma. But we're in the SEC, so
yeah.
I'm the South.
Right. Well, Big Ten, baby, all day. Um, we can talk offline.
Yeah.
Um, so, uh, well, in the Midwest, there are a lot of billboards that are between cities. There's a lot of land and, and opportunities to be sold to and shared some products and services. So, through what your course is going to help individuals understand that level of business. So explain to us kind of what that course looks like, and then kind of what is it possible for someone to really uh, leverage that for some financial blessings and opportunities to be able to be an extravagant giver like yourself?
Absolutely. Again, and what I love about billboards is you can start out as simple as possible. One of the questions I always get is, well, how do I get started? What would I do? And how much do I need? Is it super
Hmm.
expensive? And billboards, you can range from $200 to buy a billboard to
Hmm.
$250,000 or $500,000. So there is a range of stuff, but 4x4 post and a piece of plywood from Lowe's is a way to start. That's
Hmm.
a billboard. Like you could put up a sign, right? And anybody can do
Right.
that, all the way up to the big digital billboards in the big cities or downtowns or whatever it may be. The ones on the highway that you're talking about in between cities and the big steel structures. So I have a little bit of everything: steel structures, digital boards. And so it just takes you understanding and doing that. It's an insider's game. It's really not a fair place. Like I said, it's kind of a secret marketplace, but if you have
Hmm.
a guide, someone to show you how, once you understand the basics, you can definitely scale that up from 1 to 20, 30 boards over time. It doesn't have to be in a
Hmm.
big city. The rural areas that you're talking about are actually the best places, I think, to grow and scale these businesses. So don't think
Hmm.
your downtown New York's or Manhattan's or LA's. That's not what we want. We actually want the rural,
Hmm.
Midwest cities, Southeast cities.
Hmm.
That kind of stuff makes a really good place to start.
Wow. That's a new, again, you wouldn't think about that, like, oh, I don't know how many times I've driven down the highway and may have seen the uh same billboard, like, hey, Wendy's exit 70 something,
Yeah.
or whatever the case is. And
And
those
they're
are
just paying them
static, right?
monthly. Yeah, that's just a
That's
static. They're
it.
paying them $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month per sign.
Wow. Because that Wendy's isn't going anywhere
No,
as long as it's by that highway. People are going
that's
to get their
right.
food now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there a particular, as you're going through that process of getting into the insider's game of billboarding, is there a particular business like food or commerce or legal that you find are more successful, or is it just kind of like, hey, these are the ones that people are interested, people are going to buy it, and that's it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's businesses that want more customers. That's who advertises, right? The good businesses that actually understand. They want to make, advertising or marketing is to make known. And so if you want
Mm-hmm.
to make your business known, advertising is a way to do that. And billboards are a great way for that. It's one of those, again, you can't turn off. It's always on. It's out there. So there's a little bit, you see the ones that have bigger budgets that spend regular, your furniture stores, your car dealerships, your banks, your lawyers,
Mm-hmm.
your different ones. But, I have some of those that have been on with me 8, 10 years, the same clients, like you're saying that
Mm-hmm.
Wendy's has been up for whatever it may be. The heating and air places, they
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of business. The
Mm-hmm.
insurance agents do a lot of business. So it's not something that's hard. It's not something that you're out having to pitch every day. Especially, the static boards are normally on a year lease. So they're year to year or 2 year leases. So you start to put those up, but makes it a fun game when almost everybody's a potential client in your market.
Right. Man, that's incredible. Gosh, why I keep saying it's incredible. Um, that's really cool. Let's use a different word. Um, so another question for you in regards to the billboarding business: is there any uh, are there any places of real estate that you can actually take over and actually build your own billboard now these days, or is it just the existing infrastructure of billboarding that you've been able to build a business from? That's another great question, because there's buildings now, particularly as a result of the pandemic, that downtown businesses, there's walls that are, I'll say, brick walls on some buildings downtown that you can put. I've seen Apple put a huge banner whenever a new iPhone comes out
Mm-hmm.
that they put on something just down the street.
Yeah.
So is it generally something that, hey, I can take my current real estate, turn that into a billboard, or do I have to put something up or do something that's traditional in that way?
All of the above. So I think I've acquired, I've
Hmm.
bought, I've leased land, I've owned my own land, I've built new structures. So I have a mixture of all that. So I think it's all open. I think it's understanding the right game to play in your market and
Hmm.
where you can play that. That's the hardest part. That's where you
Hmm.
need a guide to kind of walk you through that, is to understand, okay, what does it mean? Where can I do this? How does that work? Because there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you
Hmm.
want to make sure that you address and have done upfront the work on. Otherwise, you can get yourself in trouble. And it's not a
Right.
fun place for people that if they want to put something up and they get it up and they realize they can't and they got to tear it all back down, that they just did that. Luckily, I haven't had that, but I've seen it happen,
Right.
and lots of people are like, "Oh, I'll just go put this up." It's like, no, that doesn't work that way. You have to understand the game and understand the rules. But everyone has them.
Hmm.
The rules are clearly established, and some make it easy, some make it hard. It's not a game that everybody can play. It's not endless like traditional real estate. It's probably a little more opportunity because there's so much single family homes, and so this is a little bit more of a niche. But it's a great place to play because once you get it, there's not 1,000 other people trying to play in the space.
Hmm.
And that's something with the course. Like I'm not,
Got it.
this course isn't going
Man,
to be
this
for
is
a
it.
thousand
Nah,
people a year.
I think
It's going to be for 20 to 50
your
people a
course is
year.
really going to help unlock a lot of opportunities.
That's the goal.
Oh, for
That's
the
the goal.
your course? I'm super intrigued. I know we talked about it before, but this is something that I think your course is really going to unlock a lot of opportunities for individuals who want to um, who see something they see every day and don't understand all the
Yeah.
intricacies behind it. So I'm excited about your course and in what that's going to turn into. I have one more question for you. And then before we get off, I want to make sure we get all your information for those who are interested
Yeah.
in learning this business from you, contacting you. So we'll make sure we get that. at the conclusion of this last question. And my last question for you is, now that you uh, have the financial wealth, you have created a very sustainable and lucrative business, and through that business, you've been able to bless individuals with the things that they need, that we've been really commanded to do, is to utilize our resources to bless someone else. How has your faith contributed in all three of these aspects? Not just in the fact of like, hey, this is what you're going to do, not the doing,
Mm,
but the being person.
yeah.
Because it sounds like this journey for you has really transformed you as a human being. And honestly, you can't have anything, all these things can take you if you don't have your hope placed in the right
Mm,
place. So, how has that journey been for you with your faith walk?
yeah. Great question. And I think it's so important that we have to realize all of it's God's, like the money, the people, the stuff. It's all his, right? Like we don't really have anything. We just steward the stuff that's here while we're here. And so I think what we have to realize is that we're not here to consume, we're here to serve others and to love others first and foremost. And I think if our heart's that right and is focused on that, then all these other things will flow. So it's a daily abiding. It's understanding that I need to be close to my Father and I need to be close to his word and what he says. And when I do that, the other stuff will flow. It's my past and my history. Actually, I actually didn't always do that well. I was pretty egotistical, pretty selfish and driven, and kind of left a wake of bodies behind me as I was climbing for a little while. And I think that's important that we understand that no, the change and the transformation of our heart is what then will allow us to be and live in that fulfilled life. And so the money won't make you fulfilled. Money does not bring happiness, does not bring joy. It makes a lot of things easier and you can do a lot of things with it. But your heart has to be healed and you have to be whole, which, you know, there's a lot of stuff. We've all been wounded, us as guys and ladies out there, that we have to understand that we've been wounded in our past by others, and we need to have some of that healed up so that the insecurities don't come out, so that we're not wounding others. And I think that
Mm,
abiding relationship and that spending time in the word and understanding that God cares, he knows me, he cares about me, he listens to me, and then letting him be our guide, right? Letting him be who I follow and who I get all my worth from. I don't need anything. I can't add anything else. It's all been paid for. It's all been finished. I just need him, and that's it. And I think once we do that, it's a lot easier um, to walk those paths, you know. And I think we need guides in our life. I was actually working out in the barn. This can be related to billboards. This could be related to our walk with God. It can be related to anything. I was working out in my barn. So I have a barn outside. I have a little CrossFit gym in it, and I'm doing a workout. And this little hummingbird flies out. It's in the middle of the summer, and I have two garage doors, one on each end. They're both up. This little hummingbird, it's a beautiful little green and red hummingbird. You know, they're tiny if you've never seen one in person, and they're just flapping their wings a million miles an hour. Flies in and flies up to the rafters. He's up in the ceiling, and he's going back and forth, and he's just wearing himself out, back and forth, back and forth. He's hitting his head on the walls. He's hitting his head on the wood. He's like stopping. He finally stops, sits down. He's just panting. And I'm like, uh-oh. It's like 95 degrees in the summer here, and it's about 115, you know, heat index. I'm like, he's not going to make it.
mhm,
Keeps going back and forth. So I go grab the feeder that we have, because we actually feed hummingbirds here. And I go get that hummingbird feeder and I put it up in the rafters. I get on the ladder, I climb up and I put it up there. After a few minutes, he finally sees it and he sits on it and rests, gets a drink and gets that refreshing water. But he takes off again, back and forth, back and forth. So what I eventually do is I start to lower it down. I actually take that hummingbird feeder every few minutes and lower it down. He sees it and lands on it.
mhm,
And then, but he goes right back up, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I lower it down to the ladder. I get it down finally lower than the garage doors where he could see out on either side. He lands on it, gets a drink, takes right back off up into the under the roof. I'm like, man, I've been out here for 30 minutes with this hummingbird, and he's going back and
mhm,
forth and back and forth. Finally, I lower that down a little bit lower. He comes back down. I mean, we're talking, he's got clear sight. Either way, he can get out. He finally flies
mhm,
out. He has freedom. How many times
mhm,
in life are we the hummingbird? How many times are we up in those rafters and we're beating our heads side to side and we can't figure it out? We're like, well, where in the world? I'm trying to go this way, trying to go that way. But what he needed was a guide. He needed someone to help him slowly. It wasn't a fast process. Like it wasn't a 1 minute thing. I spent and invested 45 minutes in this hummingbird coming down from the rooftops. But how many times
Yeah.
do we need a guide? Someone to show us. Maybe it's how to do billboards and build wealth, get out of debt. Maybe it's those. Maybe it's somebody that needs to tell us and help us heal our hearts or get some of that woundedness healed up and become less selfish and become those things. And then maybe that's Jesus. Everybody needs that, right? Everybody needs that. But maybe
Mhm.
we all need that guide, someone that will come alongside and lower that down for you, give you a drink of water, refresh you, show you around the corner that you cannot see, give you insight into the areas that you can't see. We need coaches, we need mentors, we need people in our lives, we need community to do that. So I bet, as I was looking at that hummingbird, I related to that hummingbird. I'm sure a lot of our listeners, your listeners out there can relate to that. Are we the hummingbird? Who are we looking to as our guide? One, is it Jesus? And then two, do I have other guides in my life that are helping me in all those areas, the financials, the spirituals, physicals, all those things? We all need that. So, as you think about that, are you the hummingbird that's back and forth? And who are you going to be the guide? Who are you going to have as your guide? Do you have a guide?
Chris, there's nothing to be said, man. That's a perfect way to close out this interview, man. Chris, man, thank you so much for being on the Life Refresh podcast. And it's amazing you use refresh. And you might be a preacher, man. That was really good. Um, Man, so if someone is interested in getting into your course, following you, getting more information, how can they find you?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just see if it's right for them, right? Like I don't know, maybe it's not the right thing, maybe there's another area, but I have on my website, I have a guide to it's a kind of a playbook to see if the passive income through billboards is right for them, and you can just check that out at wantmore.org. So like you want more money.org. So wantmore.org, and there's a free guide for them to take a look at it. Good checklist on that to see if it's fits their personality or what they like to do or what they're wanting to do and their goals, and if those two fit. Love to be a part of that if I can help in any way.
Awesome. We will make sure that link is in the show notes so that we'll be able to get that. We'll make sure to also have Chris's other information listed there as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for listening in. I hope that this podcast blessed you. And in the meantime, we'll catch you in the next pod.